Hello and welcome to the Why We Horror podcast. In this episode, we are going to talk about the film I Saw the TV Glow. Just to give you a couple little trigger warnings before we start, this episode is going to be talking about some gender dysphoria as well as somehow Joss Whedon once more. My name is Matt, and I am one of your hosts here. I've decided to ask the hosts what their most formative TV show was in their youth. For me, it was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That was something that really kind of coded me and something that I could easily tap in and relate to on a very deep level. Um, I'm going to pass this off to Matt.
Hi, I'm also Matt. Uh, I would say one of the most formative TV shows for me would be Malcolm in the Middle. And I don't even know how much it formed it. It was just one of the shows I think I just identified with because it wasn't like the nice, clean, a full house family. It was like chaos and just like a realistic family struggling to get by. And I think that just made it so much easier to identify with.
Totally. Amber.
Hey, I'm Amber. I had to think about this a lot because I think as a kid, I definitely felt more like music was formative over TV, and TV was just sort of like entertainment. But I did wear a shirt to accompany my answer. This is my. This is, I do love Captain Planet, so I'm wearing the "Power Is Yours" T-shirt today. And I think it was, the more I think about it, formative because there was always like a distinctly good guy and a bad guy. And there was this group of like very diverse kids who all had like different powers, right? So everyone brings something different to the table in order to like fight the bad guy and do the good things. And the good thing was always saving the planet, which is where we all live and need to survive. So that I think definitely resonated with me. And as I get older, I can see like how that crops up in my life and the things that I do and support today.
Absolutely. And Lillian.
Hi, I'm Lillian. And for me, the answer would have to be Adventure Time. I think it's so cute and whimsical for children, but as I go into my adult years and my 20s, rewatching it and stuff, there's so much more like depth to it than I realized when I was a kid, but it still has that nostalgia factor. But it's so cute and sweet and great writing, especially for a children's show.
Absolutely. Well, all good choices, and welcome. We are talking about I Saw the TV Glow. This was a indie film that came out last year in 2024 through A24, directed by Jane Schoenbrun, written by Jane Schoenbrun as well. The cast stars Justice Smith, the credited Bridgette Lundy-Paine, though they now go by Jack Haven, and they go by they them pronouns. Helena Howard, Lindsey Jordan, and Connor O'Malley rounded out the cast. The cinematography in this movie is absolutely on point, and that was by Eric K. Yu. The score was by Sophie Marshall, with Alex G. as the editor. A brief synopsis of this movie, which is kind of incredibly hard to explain. It's more of an experiential film, is it's about outcast Owen and Maddie, who meet and connect through a love of a supernatural TV show called The Pink Opaque. And what follows is the ambiguous horror of living in an untrue life. Now, as a horror film, this is kind of unusual because the horror isn't as explicit as you would expect in a horror film. It's definitely a supernatural film. It's a soft fantasy, which was my nickname in high school. Um, but for a horror podcast, this is kind of an unusual one to do for the second episode. But I think that the horror that is tapped into is quite interesting. I'm going to pass it off to everybody and see what did you guys think of the film. We're going to reserve our ratings for the end of this podcast, but just generally, what did people think about this movie?
I really liked it. This was watching it for this podcast was the second time that I had watched it, and I do think that I have different opinions both times, which I think was really cool. But I remember the first time I watched it, I thought about it for days and weeks after, and like I would just be doing something, and just the littlest things would remind me of it. And I'd be like, "Dang, remember that movie we just watched? That was good." And when I think about whether or not it's horror, I agree that it's not like horror the way that we maybe like socially think of horror, but when I talk about this film with other people, I tell them that I was haunted by it. Like it haunted me after I saw it. So there's like, I don't know, it sticks with you, and it's uncomfortable, and it's a little bit unnerving, and the second watch through I got more out of it. So I do feel like it's something that you can watch over and over again and pick out different things, or feel different things. The visuals lead you different places if you're paying attention each watch. So I really think all around it's a great film, to be honest.
There's a lingering sense of dread that kind of is
Yeah.
sprinkled throughout the film that really pulls you through, even if you don't engage with the movie. I think it would be hard to say that you're not always intrigued by it. Um, uh, how about Saz and Lillian? What do we think?
Amber basically summed up my thoughts on it. I saw it when it was in theaters, and I left the building just in tears. It is so impactful for a reason I can't really put my finger on. But I've seen it multiple times. I own the DVD. I love this movie so much. I think it's really brilliantly constructed and performed. And on the topic of haunting, the one scene like at the end of the movie, just like absolutely startles me, and shakes me to my core every time. It's so fantastic. I love this movie.
What scene are you referring to?
Oh,
The slicing or
the
the
scream.
screaming? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I feel
Uh,
that.
I also enjoyed the movie. Well, enjoyed is a interesting term. No, I found it fascinating. I think the word that kept coming to my mind is unsettling throughout most of it.
Mhm.
And I did really like it because it was intriguing. You weren't quite sure where the line between reality and fantasy was. Um, Pretty unsettling, but like the characters are awkward but acted really well, and so they're very
Yeah.
authentic, and like they're struggling through life, and like not they're not the normal, like, I guess, actors who just have the lines ready to go, right? It's this
Yeah.
slow unfolding of them dealing with this life, and there's no easy set answers. And that's something that I think is why it kind of keeps sticking with you in your mind afterwards, is because there's no clear resolution, right? This is just it's kind of life unfolding and them struggling with it, and there's not a clear cut yes or no answer. And I don't know. Yeah, I when I was younger, I didn't like those types of movies as much, and as I've gotten older, I've grown to really appreciate them.
Yeah, there's kind of a connection between this and something like Get Out, where you can watch it the first time and you might like it based on its artistic decisions or its cerebral kind of storytelling and whatnot, but it's designed for you to connect with it upon a rewatch and for you to really see the subtle hints of what are at play beyond just the allegory and stuff. It's a movie I liked. I hadn't seen it before. This was my first viewing. I'd heard very good things, but I'd also heard it was a pretty divisive film. If you vibe with it, you vibe with it, and if you don't, or you don't understand the allegories at play, you're just not gonna have much to enjoy here, because it's also not necessarily a satisfying film. There's a kind of bitter darkness to its conclusion, which I'll touch on a little bit later. But I thought it was really good, and part of what pulled me through that are the really strong performances by Justice Smith and Jack Haven. Particularly Maddie is such an interesting character, and the monologue that they give in the room full of like stars and stuff like that is absolutely mesmerizing. Not only because visually that was a really fascinating way to have this really long monotone monologue be kind of thrust to the audience, but um, they give just this powerhouse performance laden with emotion, but so reserved at the same time. It's good filmmaking, and people both in front of and behind the camera. So safe to say we liked this film. I'm gonna sort of dive into some of the analytical themes and talking points of the movie. So the prime horror in the film is sort of living an untrue life, and how gender dysphoria plays into that. You're following Owen, who is uh, presented as a male kind of character, but I think their obsession with the pink opaque, and if you break down the TV show Pink Opaque, what does that title mean? It's the pink you cannot see, and you see him or see them wearing a dress in a closet at one point, and by the end of the movie, splitting themselves apart to see the TV glow from inside. All of this kind of reads as this is their trans experience that they're denying themselves. Um, and I think the horror is pretty damn effective in that sense. Uh, his performance is really strong. Justice Smith, if you watch this against any other movie he's really done, this is such a different performance. Um, well, for a first time viewer or something, it would look like he's not really doing much, but he's doing a lot. Did anybody want to jump on that anywhere? Fair enough. There's a sort of theme of societal oppression, particularly with the Owen's father. Um, Owen is denying their true self or her true self throughout the film, and you keep getting callbacks to this father who is kind of talking down to his child. He hears that Owen is interested in watching the Pink Opaque and is triggered by that and immediately says, "Isn't that a show for girls?" In a very dismissive way. And I think it's things like this and the all the characters put around him, with the exception of Maddie, who force him in that closet, unable to come out to be the person they or she is. Anybody want to jump in on that?
I thought they were actually going to do a bit more with both of the fathers, both Maddie's and Owen's father, because they kept alluding to it. But I kind of like that they kept them in the background, and like they played some key, pivotal, very I think powerful driving, motivating factors for the characters, but they weren't actually involved in the day-to-day lives of the characters. And I think that was reflected very well in the movie and the experience watching it.
Yeah, I would agree. I also expected Maddie's father to come up because there's a lot of storytelling told about the relationship she has with her father that we never see, but we can totally pick up everything about that relationship. And it's probably wise not to show it, especially since it's not really that kind of movie. Subtlety is probably this movie's strong suit. But yeah. Another key component I think is compelling with the movie is the TV show they're obsessed with. And something that I think I really connected to while watching this movie, because I don't necessarily have uh, the trans experience. I do have an experience feeling kind of othered while being obsessed with this show, and the show in the film, The Pink Opaque, is very evocative of any number of '90s shows. There's definitely elements of Are You Afraid of the Dark? In fact, when we're first introduced to the Maddie character, it's with Owen walking into the woods, sitting around a campfire and sprinkling dust into the fire, and the fire goes big, just like every episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark starts. So you're about to be told a story, right? But the right down to the credits of the TV show is written in the same font as Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The fact that they use words like Big Bad, which was coined by Buffy the Vampire Slayer, they use a character's name from Buffy. I connected with this incredibly deeply because there seemed to be a shared connection. Even at one point, the character of Tara in the TV show is holding the scythe, which was Buffy's Slayer scythe from season 7 of the show, which was an Easter egg that they don't linger on for more than 2 seconds in the movie. But I instantly saw it, called it out, and started freaking out to my wife, who's like, "Oh my God, get over it." But I thought the capturing of that kind of obsessive mindset of how this show is something that you can connect with when you can't connect with other people was captured it very well for me. What did anybody else feel about the show?
I really loved how whenever we see the Pink Opaque, except at the end of the film when Owen watches it on a streaming service, it's filmed exactly like the rest of the film is. We don't see it like on a screen. We see it as if it's the rest of the film, like it's happening before us. It very much like supports the idea that they're the actual characters from the show, and it makes you feel, or at least for me, way more like connected to it in the way that they are.
Yeah. The show within the show, they're driving to try and get to the unmade episode 1 of season 6, because at season 5 there's a death before the rebirth, and hearkening it back to Buffy, that's literally what happens in that show. Season 5 ends with the grave, and season 6 is about clawing your way out. And so I thought that was kind of a neat little touch too. But yeah, Buffy's not the only show this is very similar to. There's a lot of the Ice Cream Man, from my research, is pretty similar to a character from Pete and Pete, The Adventures of Pete and Pete. If you ever saw that, it was a Nickelodeon show. I loved it when I was a kid.
I have the first season of Pete and Pete, so it's very on brand.
I loved that show, but I have not watched it since it first aired.
Yeah, it holds up. It might be like this Pink Opaque situation, where when you watch it back, you're like, oh, this was not anything like I thought it was, or this was not the experience I had. I had a very different experience.
I had that experience with Are You Afraid of the Dark? I remember loving that show when I was a kid. And right out of high school, maybe a year or two after, I got friends together doing a horror night. And I was like, we're going to watch, I bought like season 5 or season 6 at Walmart for $5. I was like, we're going to watch Are You Afraid of the Dark and watch spooky Nucci stuff. And that did not last long. It was so bad. It was like made for a nickel, if that. It was like, I couldn't believe it. That I was like, how did this show captivate me when I was like 9?
I think the Pink Opaque does a good job of capturing that. Because I still don't know how I feel about Mr. Melancholy. Like, I mean, I know it's supposed to be cheesy and absurd, but I'm just like, what the hell? Like, the moon face
Yeah.
just walking around. I
Yeah.
have a, but I kind of like it, and then I'm a kind of like, I don't know how like people could get drawn into that show quite as much, but then I think of like other shows, and it's exactly like that, where at the time when you're into it, the cheesiness doesn't matter because that's not what you're connecting on. And then yeah, if you watch it back some other time later, you might be like, oh god, that was awful.
Yeah, I get that.
Did you guys like Mr. Melancholy?
I believe was a reference to the Man in the Moon, the famous silent film. So like
I
that
haven't.
tickled me on like a film level. It's a silent film from like 1914, 1912, something like that. And it's famous for being one of the first movies to showcase spectacular special effects. Um, but
Can't
yeah,
deny
there's
it.
a moon with a face in it, and then a rocket hits it, and
Yeah.
so this was kind of supposed to be evocative of that.
In the screenplay, it directly references that as what Mr. Melancholy is supposed to look like. But I, as a fellow film lover, the first time I watched it, I was like, "Oh, it's the moon face thing."
Right?
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I dug that.
I think as watching this as with a critical eye the second time through, this is going to get nerdy, but I think having it be like a moon face is like part of why it works so well, because the moon is so like this like ubiquitous thing, and we love the man in the moon, and like we're not maybe like primed to think of it as something that's like evil or bad or nefarious, and people sort of romanticize it, and it's not a threat to us in a way. And I think that the Pink Opaque being like a show that has like a monster of the week, right, that is being uh, these people who make up the Pink Opaque are being like threatened and like hunted down by Mr. Melancholy. They're trying to be eradicated. He's sending these monsters of the week to take them out. I think it speaks a lot to the LGBTQ experience of having like these obstacles every other day, of like one step forward, two steps back, this new bill or that new bill, or whatever it is. That's kind of the life that you're living in that community, where like your neighbor may be something you didn't think was a threat, and all of a sudden they are now, right? Because they're not backing you up in your community, or all of a sudden they go to a PTA meeting and you see them talking down about book bans or whatever, taking gender neutral stuff out of schools, things like that. So you're seeing these things that maybe you're not thinking of as the monster, right, or the threat, and it becomes that. So I think the Pink Opaque, the way that they made it, I think it makes a lot of sense for sort of the community and the experience they're trying to convey. It's so
Yeah, totally.
the second time I watched it, when I was like, okay, this is what I'm looking for, and it made more sense.
Yeah, I ended up watching it twice as well, just because. So I watched the movie, I read the screenplay, and then I watched the movie again. And there was stuff in the screenplay that I thought was really quite compelling. One thing specifically that I'll touch on towards the end. But that's interesting. I didn't necessarily pick up on the everyman kind of evil that it represents. I thought that was neat. I did pick up on the thing that puts her in her grave is the Luna juice or lunar juice or whatever it is. That to me was very evocative of like drinking the Kool-Aid. Even if it's being forced on you, you just kind of give in at a certain point. And then the drive for the rest of the movie is to get her and them out of the grave. I thought that was kind of neat. The movie, as you guys both mentioned, kind of involves removing the nostalgia goggles at a certain point of watching. When Owen watches it in HD, suddenly sees the aspect ratio shift to an old style, pretty poorly shot and hammy acted version of the same thing you watched. And one of the truly gruesome images you see in this is of what the soft serve ice cream man looks like in the beginning. It's a chilling, disturbing mutant monster. And then when you see it at the end, you're like, this is so harmless. Like, how did this affect me? And I've definitely experienced that as well.
It took me a minute in the movie to realize that that's his new. I thought they like redid the show on Netflix or whatever the streaming was. I'm like, oh, they just ruined the show, and then it took me like a minute. I'm like, oh no, this is just him. His perception has changed over time. The show's always been the same.
Yes. Something that felt very real now feels incredibly tactile and like cheaply made.
Yeah.
And I can definitely relate.
Do you think Owen's perception changed because of how his relationship with Maddie ended, and that kind of soured the Pink Opaque a bit?
I think that's kind of Owen's first dive into the refusal to choose the life that they want to live, or that they are hiding within themselves, rather. And suddenly seeing this thing and not having it be real or lived in like it was for Owen when he was younger is kind of where that was going. So the shift in the presentation to him or to them or her is sort of cemented by the end of that movie, and that's the start of where you're getting towards the final culmination. Well, we're on the subject. How do people feel about the end of this movie? On one level, it is incredibly unsatisfying, and there are a couple of different reads you could make of it. How do people read the end of this movie?
I had different takes from my first to the second viewing. And the first time I was very much like Lillian. I was just like sitting like open mouth, just like tears, like so sad. And I felt like that like very haunted and like just like gutted, literally gutted feeling of like Owen having not gotten to live an authentic life and choosing to not be their authentic selves. And 60 years or whatever has gone by, and they're just in this job and this family that they didn't necessarily want or don't like. We never even see the family. We're just with them. So it seems very like depressing and sad and closeted and alone. And I was just like, oh no, they lost their life, basically. Like their whole life is gone and they never got to be themselves. And they sort of like solidified in my mind that the end was like at that scream moment and like that was the end of my mind. And watching it again, I'm like, oh, it continues, there's more to this. And I really feel like it's sort of open-ended, and it's almost as if once Owen goes to the bathroom and cuts themselves open and sees this like emptiness and this void and realizes that like maybe that was real. We were told previously that like time isn't the same in the Pink Opaque as it is in the Midnight Realm, where they are like living and haunting. So like part of me is like, maybe that was the wake up call. Maybe they understood, and we just see them leaving that like child's play place or whatever. And I'm like, maybe they're going back to the football field. Maybe they're going to bury themselves. Maybe they're starting over. So the second time I watched it, I had like this little bit of hope, and maybe that was just me like wanting to make it a better ending and just like wanting to be happy about it. But I'm like, maybe Owen's going to free Isabel. Like maybe they're going to be themselves, and they're going to find Tara, and they're going to the Pink Opaque, and maybe it's happy.
That's fair.
Yeah. I had those same kind of thoughts as well. Although I don't think I ended on the optimistic. I think I loved the screaming, the cutting open. I felt that was almost cathartic, and it could have been a turning point. But like, I think it just really hit me hard when he then just kind of stumbles through apologizing to everybody.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to, I'm just like, oh, I was not expecting that to be the result of what just happened. And that's what brought me from like, oh, catharsis, there's going to be some moment where he realizes all of that. And I do have a tiny bit of hope that he did come to those conclusions, but I think the way he composed himself and returned to work, I think, shows that he's back to his old life, right? And it's very much he's going to continue living the life he had been living for the last 20 or so years.
Yeah,
That's
it's also very much like a reality for so many queer people, where you just like, you know that you would be happier if you lived your life as authentically as possible, but there's just so many barriers in the way, whether internal or external, that for whatever reason make you not live that life. And I think like the chalk message of "there is still time," like at the end, just sends like chills throughout my body. And I don't know how old Owen is supposed to be at the end. I didn't do that math in my head, but like for so many older queer people, like people like my age, have had so much exposure to like queerness so loud, and so I've felt very comfortable like expressing it loudly as well. But I know a lot of older queer people like keep it more silent and more to themselves, and I think that Owen like splitting their chest open in the bathroom is just like having that moment of relief where they are like feeling truly like themselves, but then they just suppress it and go back to how they were living their life because it's too complicated to live that and show it to everyone.
yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
the reading I kind of had was twofold. The first time I saw it, I was just I was accepting the movie as a certain level of reality, and the reality of the ending was kind of disappointing for me. But upon reading the script and then watching it a second time, the ending is kind of wickedly sad and depressing because they don't have the resolution we want them to have, and especially with those words "there's still time" that spring up, it's so disappointing. But at the same time, there is kind of that hope that lingers because they did see that within themselves. They saw it, they looked straight into it, uh, into the deadlights, kind of, but then come back and start saying sorry. We may have lost Asthma, which is interesting. Um, is he back? I might have to send the link back out to him. But that was really uh, just sad and disappointing watching him go through and walk this walk of shame of like, sorry about that, sorry. And I found that incredibly disturbing, that's how they're kind of choosing to live their life afterwards. Oh, it looks like Sasma's power went out, so
Oh,
we might not be
Your
getting. Um, oops, comes back. Sorry, it was just writing to let him know. So Sasma might be gone, but we are still here. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to say about the ending?
I mean, all of those takes are exactly how I felt. I think
Yeah,
just like disappointing, and like not for me, right? Like I was sad for Owen, I was sad for Isabel, and I was like, ugh. But like you said, the reality of that ending, I think there are a lot of films that end that way, right? Like Promising Young Woman, right behind me. Like that is an
yeah,
ending that you're like, I didn't like that, but also the reality of it being shown is sort of what's necessary, because if we keep telling these stories that end happily, like we're a little bit lying to ourselves that that's the experience of everyone in that situation, right? Like for every Maddie, there is going to be an Owen, right? For every Tara, there's going to be that Isabel that doesn't get to be there. So it makes me sad to have to be like, that is the ending, but like it was the ending, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's, as I think Lillian pointed out, this is something that a lot of people go through because it's so much easier to live an uncomplicated life. Well, making that decision is the most complicated thing in the world. Uh, so there's just this somber energy that the film kind of releases, kind of like Static, right? It's not a great ending, but in it there's kind of greatness, and I think having the ending that it has might be more inspirational than having the ending we wanted to have.
Right. I really love the use of Owen's asthma
Yeah,
because we're we're shown that in the Pink Opaque, Isabel has been buried alive, and basically, like, to go back, Owen has to die in the Midnight Realm and go find themselves. But Owen has asthma; he's slowly suffocating, where Isabel has been buried alive and is also slowly suffocating. And so we see these parallels of those lives that they're like, supposedly living like side by side. I think it was just such a cool choice to include those little things that can be like that through line from the Pink Opaque into either the real world or the Midnight Realm. Like, it depends on how you're looking at Owen's existence.
that's fascinating. I picked up on a lot of like the connections and similarities. I didn't pick up on that one, the slowly suffocating, the asthma, the wheezing.
Hmm.
And I should have. It's, I guess, relatively on the nose, but that's that's the one I didn't pick up. I didn't bite that apple. Interesting.
Yeah, I think the
Um,
asthma also makes it feel so much more claustrophobic. And I don't know, when I see people like not being able to breathe properly, I start like not being able to breathe properly. Um, and it just it's so well done in such a neat detail, like you said, with the being buried alive.
yeah. Um, One of the next things I wanted to talk about is the look of the film. I think this film, regardless of the content within it and how you feel about it, is one of the best looking movies I've seen in a while. Um, the use of lighting is spectacular, and obviously the core colors of the pink, the purple, the blue, the white you see repeated over and over again. I love the parachute thing in the beginning that I loved when I was a child, but instead of the rainbow colors of tradition, it's got the trans flag. Um, that was so neat. But those colors from that point forward are basically the key colors you will see,
Yeah.
and how the way it's shot, most things glow, and I thought that was brilliant visual storytelling. Anybody else have anything to say regarding color, the look, cinematography, anything like that?
I mean, all of it was really well done, like you said. I think I picked up on so much of the lighting, definitely with the second watch, because I was looking for it. That parachute at the beginning is one of my favorites, but the same color and the same lighting, like you said, shows up in like the ice cream truck, the smoke at the beginning of like the
Mm-hmm.
fires that are happening in the sidewalk chalk. One of my favorite scenes is when Owen is just walking through a hallway, which is a white hallway, and on the left is blue lights and on the right is pink lights, and like there's just so many visuals throughout and so many opportunities to like pick out these little pieces of lighting that you're seeing Owen kind of navigating essentially a trans lifestyle of like either walking through those colors, being presented with those colors, running away from those colors. It's throughout, it's everywhere, and I think subtly done, because not all of them are like in your face, but also when you're looking for it, it's like, oh yeah, they are all over.
Yeah, uh, I was just blown away with how good it looks, and for me the tip of the hat came right away with right when I saw the parachute and the way that it was colored, the unusual colors for the exact thing it was. I was like, oh, this is going to be because I had honestly no idea. I was like, this is probably going to be some kind of trans or ally story of some kind. And so it was brilliant to start the movie with that. For people who know, they're going to get it right away, and people that don't, they'll hopefully pick up on it throughout the film. But I thought that was just exceptionally smart way to like open the feature. I'm going to open up the floor to questions. Well, the first question that I have is: have you ever found yourself more engaged with a work of art than the real world you inhabit?
I mean, like every second of every day, but
That's fair. Um, as I say, like I've done it quite a bit. It's a lot easier to fall into the real world REEL than it is to live in this one, because there's a certain safety to film uh, that you just don't experience in real life. And I'm a person that connects to people and whatnot uh, in like a film landscape because I can see and fully understand and contextualize what I'm experiencing on the outside world through people that I'm watching on television or in film or in a book or through music or whatever. So yes. Anybody else want to touch on that at all? Fair enough. Why do you think we live an attainable life through fiction rather than be pursuant of the life we innermost want? Oftentimes, we do watch fiction as a way to experience that which we can't, even though sometimes it's not fantasy, sometimes it's not anything like that. It's completely attainable, but we choose to pursue it in fiction rather than try to chase it in the real world.
I think it's almost more like socially acceptable to have a big reaction to I don't know, like a movie or TV show or book or something, than it is to like feel that experience within yourself and outwardly show it. Like if a character is going through something that you're going through, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm just so sad for them, and you like see yourself reflected in them, and people are like, oh yeah, like totally, me too. But if you're like, I'm going through this thing, it's so hard, people can get like uncomfortable at it. And
Yeah.
so just really locking into the media and connecting with it is kind of like that emotional outlet that feels more acceptable. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I
Right
think
on.
it's a safer place to express emotion. I think as much as we say like humans are emotional creatures and we have emotions, and especially like say for like men are not like allowed to have emotions really unless it's like anger, right? It gives you kind of an outlet or a conduit or like an avatar to sort of put those feelings into. And it gives you a way to like speak with another person about feelings where it's not you and you're not putting yourself out there, you're not opening yourself up for judgment. You can have a conversation about a character or about an album or a film franchise. Um, and it also, I guess, gives us like the safety of knowing, right? Once we've watched something or read something, we know what's going to happen and we know the outcome, and it's not a surprise and there are no risks involved. If we watch that film again, we know what we're going to feel, we know what's going to happen. And we're not putting ourselves in a position to be surprised or hurt or all of these things. Like media just gives us somewhere else to put ourselves in a way that like we're not actually on the line for it.
Yeah, totally. Um, okay. I'm going to move on to fun facts and trivia. The first fun fact,
So that's a
I can
fact.
hear you.
I can
I don't have you visually. Do you want me to resend? Hang tight. Okay. Gotcha. Hang tight. And hey, do we have a visual Sasma? We have visual Sasma.
Sweet.
All right. Real quick, I'll pose the question to you before I go into fun facts. Sasma, have you ever found yourself more engaged with a work of art than the real world you inhabit?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Should I go in more detail?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Moving
Done.
I think lots of. I mean, like short-term, like movies and TV shows can do it. I think when I've been most absorbed would be like video games.
Okay.
Like WoW when it first came out, and I was,
Oh yeah.
much younger and had free time during the days. I spent a lot of time playing that and getting absorbed in it. And yeah, there's definitely, I think, things you can do. Because what I like about video games is you have a sense of agency in it that you don't necessarily get with TV shows or movies. And for that makes it a bit more engaging for me to kind of cross that reality to fiction line.
Right on. There's a really good World of Warcraft movie, documentary that came out last year. Did you watch it?
I have not seen
I think
it.
it's The Remarkable Life of Ibelin. It's on Netflix. Check it out if you engage with World of Warcraft. I feel like you'd love that movie. My other question that I'd pose to the group is, why do we live an attainable life through fiction rather than be pursuant of that same kind of life we innermost want? Did we lose him again? Nope. No.
I cut out for a minute, so I didn't actually hear your second question.
So why do we live in an attainable life through fiction rather than be pursuant of the life we innermost want, even if sometimes it's the same thing?
I think because it's easier and more realistic to attain in fiction, and it's sometimes not
That's
even
fair.
possible to attain that in real life.
I feel
There's
like it
trade-offs.
also.
Actually, I did want to actually talk about one thing with
Yeah.
Owen and kind of the ending before my internet cut out. Is that it is like it's a super unsatisfying ending, I thought, because of how he kind of it felt like he didn't really accept who he really wanted to be.
Yeah.
With a little bit of interpretation. But I think it's also, right, real life is very complicated. It's a throwaway line in the movie, but he has a family and kids now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not as simple as just saying, hey, this is my new life. Like, I'm assuming he has, like, real bonds with those people, even if he still feels like part of himself isn't showing. He can't just, like, abandon his old life completely without consequences, right? Let's just say he's like, oh, yeah, I do want to do this and, go pursue that. Like, giving up, a kid that you have. Not that you give up a kid when you do that, but the idea that there are real consequences to your behavior and the actions you take, and it's not always just clean and simple. And so Owen himself might be very conflicted, and it's not always easy to judge from the outside what is actually best for Owen.
Yeah, totally. There's truth in that. That I do like that line about the family thing. The first time I saw it, I just kind of took it for granted. But the fact that we never see it, I was kind of waiting to see the family show up, and they never do. The second time I watched it, I was like, does he really have a family? Like, the fact that we never see it, I don't know. But
sorry, that was the slide that had popped in my head before I cut out. So.
No, absolutely. It's we were talking about the complexities of why they chose the path they did by the end of the film, and that actually helps to color that a little bit.
I do. Okay, so now I'm having another thought because one of the things I loved so much about the film was the periodic fourth wall breaks, and I couldn't put my finger on why I liked it so much, because normally I dislike it. Usually I don't love the way that you interact, and I'm like, oh, that took me out of it. I didn't like the use here, but I was intrigued by it for some reason, and then toward the end, or like maybe toward the middle when Maddie comes back, she says, are you experiencing these things? Are you narrating your life like an episode of television to try and get Owen to realize that like he is not in life, he is in the midnight realm and he should be in the pink opaque or whatever. And so I was like, okay, maybe that's why I like it so much, is because we're experiencing things from like Owen's perspective. We're only being shown what Owen wants us to see. We're only seeing the pieces of that experience that Owen is allowing us, as if they're the narrator of this story. And so when we're not seeing or we're not shown that family, I think it's because like Owen isn't happy there, or like maybe they don't exist, right? We don't know. But like Owen is very much in control of what we're seeing and our perception. And I think those fourth wall breaks help us. And like Maddie's explanation of like, this is like the reality you're telling yourself, because you're not allowing yourself to see the other reality, or like the one that you prefer. So you're telling yourself this story, and we're being told the story that you're telling yourself. And we're all just along for that like unsatisfying ride, right?
Yeah. Interesting. I also traditionally don't like fourth wall breaks, especially when it's used for humor. I do feel like it works better when it's trying to engage with an audience on a personal level. So it never took me out of it during this film, which is traditionally for me unusual. I'm going to move on to the fun facts and trivia about this movie. This film is kind of littered with cameos of faces popular in the 90s, at least on some level. We talked about the adventures of Pete and Pete, both of whom appear in this movie as neighbors, which I thought was kind of cool. The one that really tickled me was Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit is Owen's father. And I didn't realize that the first time, but watching it the second time, I was like, holy crap, that's Fred Durst right there. That was wild to me. The other big cameo would be Amber Benson, who plays Tara on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Schoenbrun included that cameo as a way to correct the wrong that Buffy the Vampire Slayer did to her character. If you're familiar with the representation of the lesbian community or gay community in television and film, oftentimes it's the death of the gay character. And that, I think, is most exemplified through Tara's character on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Whenever this trope is brought up, oftentimes she is the one pictured. So for her brief cameo in this to just be there to console Owen and give him a hug was kind of neat. There is an alternate ending to the film that is less ambiguous and more upbeat, but Schoenbrun chose to cut the sequence short to how it plays in this film as a sort of cautionary tale. They didn't go into what that alternate ending included. I don't know if
How
it's
could you
available on
not
the
go into
DVD.
it?
Is it on the DVD, Lillian? Do you know?
Not that I've seen, no.
Sad potatoes.
I know.
Schoenbrun started writing the film at the start of her own transition and sort of used this as a sort of therapeutic work through of her experience. I'm going to do two quotes about the movie and one quote from the script that I think the movie overlooked that I thought was super interesting. But the two quotes about the movie: in a 2024 interview with Rue Morgue, Jane Schoenbrun spoke about having to respond to an incorrect interpretation of the film. There was a drunk guy came up to me after a screening and said, I feel like this was a film about how suicide is the answer. And I was like, no, actually, if you're trapped in a TV, held in a dimension that a man in the moon has put you in, maybe checking to make sure whether or not there's TV and static inside you is a move. But that's very different than suicidal messaging. I feel very strongly that that is an incorrect interpretation of the film. Uh, and she says she does not like to say things like that too often, um, saying that the messaging you're taking from it is wrong. Um, but the very first time I saw it, when the self harm thing started to happen before the reveal of where that self harm was coming, um, I briefly had that reading too. So I was wondering if anybody else had a is self harm the answer in this? I don't think it is. I think she's right and it's not. But did anybody else read that at all?
I mean, I don't think it's a big leap, right, for anybody to make, especially because Maddie comes back and is like, I buried myself alive until basically I died and woke up where I was supposed to be, right? So, and she brings Owen back to the field to do the exact same thing, to bury yourself alive again and wake up where you're supposed to be, right? So I can see the leap, and I think if you're set on wanting that to be the message, you're going to get that message out of it. But I do think that artistically, with like the static inside and the cutting open and like removing of the hearts and like opening yourself up and seeing that you don't have a heart and therefore you're not you, I guess those things should color the other things, should, you know, give you the context to see that that's not the message here. But I don't think it's a ridiculous leap, to be honest.
Either do I. I think the big issue is this film is oftentimes showing and does not tell us verbatim things very often. So then when you have a visual of your main character doing that, after being shown so much, it also could lean to that. And having such an ambiguous ending, especially with Owen doing the walk of shame, I'm sorry, that ending could be read that way. We have a quote from Schoenbrun about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I'll just read off because as I connected with it, so did she. She said, I really did live and breathe Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I cared about Buffy more than I cared about my real life. And just having that consistency when I was like 10, I watched the first season of that show while it aired and was with it for 7 years. And it was such a tool of dissociation for me. It was, in hindsight, I think, very much a coping mechanism for not being able to form the kinds of deep romantic relationships with other people that they can form when they are in an adolescent in the right body. I wasn't in a place where I could open myself up to people, but there was this show that was so emotional that I could have this relationship with. And when I read that quote, that very much spoke to me because that was often my experience with it, taking out the in the body kind of line. That very much was my experience with it. Moving on to what we thought about this. What would your star rating be? How many glowing TVs does this movie get? I can start. Out of 5, I give it 4 TV glows out of 5. I think it's very good. I think visually it's compelling, and I think this is something that could be very helpful and speak to people on an incredibly deep level. And even if you don't connect with it personally, I think there's stuff in it for cinephiles, like the fact that oftentimes if you are a cinephile, you're going to connect with movies pretty deeply. You can connect with Owen and Maddie on that. What say you all? How many glowing TVs are you going to get?
I gave it 5 out of 5 glowing TVs, and that I don't take 5 out of 5s lightly. I very hardly ever give a film 5 out of 5. I initially gave it 4 or 4.5, but like we said at the beginning, the way it just sticks with you after, and the way I think I thought about this movie every single day for about 2 months after I watched it for the first time, and with every rewatch and with reading the screenplay, I just fall so much more in love with it and notice little details and quirks that I didn't before, and I think it's just so well made and so touching and not in like a traditional sappy way, but like it
No.
it just I connect with it so strongly, and it is so excellently made that I full sended and gave it 5 out of 5.
Right on.
I think I'd give it 4 out of 5 glowing TVs. Although I've only watched it once about a week ago, so now I do really want to give it a rewatch and pick up on a lot of the things that I may have missed on the first time. But yeah, at the moment, really liked it. Super interesting. Definitely has stuck with me and has been super thought provoking. Um, and cinematography was beautiful. Characters are super interesting and well done. So definitely liked it. But I am looking forward to a rewatch in the future.
Yeah, I I feel like it's at least a 4, if not a 4.5. I don't know if I go full 5, just because I do think there's like a subgroup of people who would not enjoy, right? And I want, like, not that 5-star movies can't exist if everyone doesn't love them, right? But I feel like it is very decisive, right? So giving it a full 5 feels kind of weird. But I do appreciate that I've watched it more than once. I want to watch it more times. I feel like I've gotten something different from the 2 times I've watched it, and I feel like I will get new things or like deepen my understanding of things the more I do watch it. So I think it holds up. I think visually it's great. We didn't talk a lot about the music, but I think the music is great. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
Phoebe Bridgers does a phenomenal job in the band that they put together. So just like on all of those like sensory things, like it has something for me each time and probably something new each time. And I do think it's a really important story to tell. I think it's powerful. I think it's intriguing. It's a little bit unsettling, but I think that makes it more intriguing that you're a little bit uncomfortable. I think people seek that out a little, maybe in that thing we talk about where like reality versus fiction, like we can be a little bit more uncomfortable because we're safer here in the media rather than in real life. So I think it's pretty accessible for most people and a very good story and important and cool and weird. So 4.5. 4 glowing TVs and 1 like ice cream turned soup bowl.
I respect all of that. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. The next episode of this podcast, it's a monthly podcast. So in the month of August, the movie will be I Know What You, or no, not I Know What You Did Last Summer. Dear heavens, I'm seeing that tomorrow. The next movie will be A Nightmare on Elm Street, which is one of my childhood favorites, and I'm excited to tackle that. And we have some interesting guests lined up for that. So stay tuned for A Nightmare on Elm Street, and let me know in the comment area what you thought of I Saw the TV Glow. Is there anything that you would like to contribute to this discussion? Sound off below. Thanks for watching, and peace.